This morning on Inside Kansas Politics, federal layoffs and DOGE cuts are hitting Kansas City hard, what the latest report is showing. Plus, Kansas's economic outlook set to take a nosedive, and what that could mean for your wallet. And a major company will soon call Kansas home, but it's shaking up plans for a pro sports team in the state. Details on that still ahead. We are taking a look at Inside Kansas Politics. Good morning, I'm Rob Hughes. Rebecca has the morning off. And we're starting off with DOGE cuts. They're making waves across the nation and, of course, in Kansas. The latest report showing just how hard Kansas City was hit. A Kansas City economic researcher says the region could lose 6,000 of its 30,000 federal jobs. Now, many have already been let go, including Shay Genorio. She moved to KC for promotion last year, but does not know what to do now.
How can anybody make life plans when there's no answers and there's no timeline for when we will get answers either? It's like, I mean, we could be waiting months and months and months, maybe, who knows? I mean, it could be the end of the year for all I know.
Well, the White House did not respond to questions about the Kansas City layoffs. Joining now with me, our political analyst, Bob Beatty. Bob, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us as always. Now,
good to be here.
What are some of your key takeaways from this report from the AP on this?
Well, we shouldn't be surprised considering this has been going on since the Trump presidency began, of course, with Elon Musk in charge of DOGE and brandishing equipment and all that sort of thing, chainsaws. So I think it's starting to get a lot of news for several reasons, Rob. I think first of all, again, we just saw those clips. There's one thing to have federal layoffs and to have employees, but these are human beings, and the glee of which Elon Musk and some others seem to be doing this probably rubs some people the wrong way. People are losing their jobs. On the other hand, they're federal employees, and when there's a new administration, they have certain liberties that they can essentially fire people. Now, there's a lot of protections here. So what happened in this case, and a little background is when I went to Iowa and saw the Republican candidates before the last presidential election, Donald Trump, one of them, and a number of others, several of them were talking about how they wanted to get rid of a lot of federal employees, and one was Vivek Ramaswamy. He ended up being an advisor for Donald Trump. And he said what he would do if he was president is on the first day just try to fire 50% of all federal employees, which is people thought was pretty outlandish. But really the idea is mass cuts immediately, like you and I were talking about earlier. How do you do this? And the problem is, I think some people say, well, you're firing some good employees, and is this making the government better? And so that's not the point I think some people are making, is that this is more about the point of cutting just large number of employees than making government better, and I think that's where you're getting some of the conflict. That's what some argue about this.
Quick follow-up, Bob. What happens to these people? Can the private sector absorb them? Where do they go? What do they do? How do they support their families?
In some ways, this is what some Republicans wanted, including some of the ones I saw in Iowa. This is quite revolutionary. And so there's a lot of unknowns. One is, yes, where do these employees go? The idea is that the economy will do well and that the private sector will absorb them. But the second thing is it will make possible talented people think twice, 4 times about taking a job with the federal government. And so again, there's some who argue, if you think the federal government is not very efficient now, it could actually get worse. The other the other thing to think about is that when you have mass cuts, there's cuts going on in the Veterans Administration, in agriculture concerning Kansas, and in some other departments in which Social Security, for example, and some may say, the IRS, what do you mean? That sounds like a good thing. Well, you don't have enough IRS agents, you're not going to be able to just collect the money. So when you have this sort of revolutionary chainsaw approach, everyone can get hit. And are we 100% sure, for example, that all the cuts in the VA are going to be good, or are they actually going to hurt veterans? You know, we got to really make sure about some of those things, I would argue.
Well said, Bob. Let's pull out and zoom out, take more of a holistic view of this. Now, what about, say, local businesses, real estate markets that are dependent on the federal employment? You know, for example, we're seeing leases, that are terminated for office buildings at several locations across the country and here in Kansas. Talk about that. How does that impact?
Well, I think you said step back, so I think it's good to step back. COVID does seem, it was a while ago, but we should remember before COVID, the economy was doing very well. And then COVID hit, and then the federal government actually feared a recession. And so Congress allocated, and the two presidents, both Biden and Trump, allocated billions of dollars for local communities. And there was a lot of money, Rob, going out from the federal governments and the state governments. And it's sort of been continuing. And it's not like there's been a lot of budget cutting since that COVID time. And the economy, we know the inflation has been bad, but inflation was partly a result of such a good economy. So there's going to be some pain. You're right. I think if there's fewer federal employees, if grants are taken away, if some agencies are cut, people are going to feel it. Part of that is because so much, in the last 5 or 6, 7 years, there has been so much money. When it does get taken back, it's going to affect people. And, like food banks, that there was a recent cut in the Department of Agriculture sending food to local food banks. So maybe the private sector and individuals are going to be asked to do some things that they have not been doing as much lately in the past 5 or 6 years.
Interesting. Let's move on, Bob. So we've seen outrage over some of the moves from the Trump administration, of course. Thousands, for example, gathering outside of the Capitol protesting Liberation Day earlier this month. They're upset over the increased use of ICE to enforce immigration laws. Of course, the federal layoffs we talked about we're seeing, and the president's reciprocal tariffs. Now, the protests coming on what President Trump called Liberation Day earlier this month. Meanwhile, we're seeing the tariffs as an opportunity, with some reports saying that secondhand stores could even see more business, and if these tariffs drive up new clothing costs, for example. So there's this other side to consider. Here's what Kansas U.S. Representative Derek Schmidt had to say about the tariffs when we spoke with him this week. He's calling it a high-risk strategy.
We have trading partners who have taken advantage of us over the years. And to the extent that's what we can accomplish with the current administration's approach, I think that is a good thing. But honestly, if I were the quarterback, I would have not called this play. But I'm not the quarterback. And the president ran on this. Unless you were asleep the last 4 years, you knew that Donald Trump was going to make this a priority tool as president. He is now doing that because voters chose that after being fully informed. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to be as supportive and helpful as we can, to try to maximize the likelihood that we succeed in fixing some of the problems that this is intended to fix, like some of our unfair trading partners. And that we then cabin or minimize maybe some of the negative consequences that we also have folks in Kansas very worried about in terms of long-term access to markets and trade disputes. So it's a high-risk strategy. And I think our job at this point is to try to minimize the risks and maximize the likelihood of success for it.
Of course, Bob, we've seen the back and forth over what could happen with the tariffs, federal layoffs, but what are some of the legal and the political implications here?
Wow, very fascinating answer from Representative Schmidt. I think what we're seeing from the Trump administration is what we're just talking about, that chainsaw approach, not just for federal employees and the federal government, but to everything. And it's not just, okay, we're raising tariffs, but we're raising them 60%, 70%, or Canada, we hate you all of a sudden, our longtime friend. It's sort of, throw everything you can out. And in some ways, it's like negotiation by extortion. If you don't do this, we're going to kill you. It's a lot. And what Representative Schmidt is saying, I think what he was saying there was, well, I'm not the quarterback. I wouldn't do it if it was I was in charge, and we might have to minimize, or I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, clean up the mess afterwards. Is that the best way to go about things? No, it's the quickest. As I said, this is kind of a revolutionary type approach. Now, that's my point. America is not a parliamentary system. I don't want to lose our viewers here. But in a parliament, you get a majority government, and they then you have a minority, the loyal opposition, but they can do essentially whatever they want. And in the United Kingdom for a long time, they didn't even have a constitution. So the courts couldn't even stop them. That's the government they had. The United States is not a parliament. Checks and balances. You've got the courts, you've got the House and the Senate, and you have the president. It's meant not to have a president come in and just do whatever the hell he wants. And yet that's what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. I think the real interesting example is Harvard University. It's like, I think that the Trump administration is essentially trying to, threatening to destroy Harvard over DEI policies. Really? And so I know Representative Schmidt said this about tariffs. Oh, well, people voted for this. Is that what they voted for? To destroy maybe the flagship university of not just the United States, of possibly the best university in the world over DEI policies and not negotiate or anything? And also, there's this idea of threatening to use the IRS against Harvard. That's come up. It was just a few years ago that Obama was in huge trouble because maybe the IRS was going after some conservative PACs. So I think it's not just the policies. I think it's the way it's happening with Elon Musk and the chainsaw that probably we're seeing these protests and some of this opposition. It's this sort of mingling of process and method. And the glee of which I would say a very small minority though, the glee of which they're going about these things.
Wow, we'll see what happens, Bob. Appreciate it. Okay, well, we have a lot more to get to when we come back. It was supposed to be in the running for the news side for the Kansas City Royals, but now a new company taking over. We have details on that after the break. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Car accident? When Devon James wins, it makes a big difference.
Here's what we mean. Insurance offer, $0. Devon James result, $150,000.
Insurance offer, $10,000. Our result, $265,000.
Insurance offer, $0. Our result, $1.25 million.
After an accident, don't trust the insurance company's first offer.
Call us at Devon James and find out what we can win for you.
Talk to people about siding, and talk to people about windows, and talk to people about decking, and it was just beyond me, and I couldn't get it to fit together. And Window Design came in and they basically put it all together. I would recommend this company to anybody, my neighbors especially, because they've all come over and wanted to see my house. It was a great experience, and the product obviously speaks for itself.
Let us make your dream project become a reality. Call the experts at Window Design and Remodeling. We are your home remodeling specialists.
Stauffer Lawn and Landscape. Service, style, and originality from start to finish. We can make your not-so-pleasing space into a space that you and your family can enjoy. To request a quote, visit staufferlawn.com.
Hi, I'm Justin Glasgow, owner of Performance Tire and Auto. This season, don't just change your tires, upgrade them and save. From now until May 31st, get up to $70 Cooper Tire reward with the purchase of 4 qualifying tires.
Drive away with confidence and safe driving when your vehicle wears Cooper tires.
Visit us at either of our 2 locations, 1735 North Kansas Avenue or 17th and South Topeka Boulevard.
And welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. 2,000 new jobs are coming to the Sunflower State. Fiserv is now opening a new financial technology center in Overland Park, and it's shaking up plans for a new sports team. This project has been in the works for more than a year. Fiserv is bringing thousands of jobs to a campus that used to house Sprint. Well, this new plan also finally puts to rest rumors that the Kansas City Royals would move there instead. The Fortune 500 company cites the campus's central location, proximity to Midwest client base, and affordable living as reasons for picking the site. Now, if that doesn't motivate Kansas college grads to keep working in the Sunflower State, this might. An average salary at the Overland Park office is $102,000. Overland Park's mayor calls it the city's biggest project to create jobs in the past 2 decades.
2,000 jobs is at least in my 20 years involved with the city, is by far the biggest. So it's exciting. So they will bring some people here. They will be hiring locally out of our universities and out of our talent pool we have here.
And Fiserv says it expects to open the Overland Park office later this year. Well, Bob, finally we know what's happening to the old Sprint campus. Let's talk about the economic impact this could have for not just Overland Park, but the whole state.
This is really something. 2,000 jobs, but as you mentioned, some really well-paying jobs. No offense to those people out that are grinding at minimum wage, but goodness gracious, because as we know, you're making $100,000 a year, you're living in Kansas, you've moved here, and you're buying a house, you got construction, you're shopping locally. I mean, we get excited because Travis Kelce, has his house on the Kansas side, right? I mean, the exponential, benefit from all those employees making that salary at that campus is going to be amazing. So this is a big, big, big home run.
Boom.
For Kansas, and we don't. I mean, it's inside Kansas politics, so we can gloat a little bit.
We can talk about inside baseball.
Kansas beat out for this Phoenix, Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth. So that's pretty cool that they decided to pick the Kansas City area and Overland Park for this versus those much bigger and in some ways well-known cities.
Very exciting. Let's move to the sports, keeping with the sports theme rather, Bob. Okay, what does it mean as far as bringing a sports team across the state line? We keep hearing about are the Chiefs or the Royals. Is Kansas going to be able to court them? What's going on with that?
Well, we should, Rob, I think we should hire some of these negotiators, for the CIA, because I've never seen any people keep secrets. I haven't heard any real leak or something official, but they're going to have to make a decision. June 1st, Kansas is the deadline for Kansas to add another year to those incentives. But both the Royals and the Chiefs have really wanted to get this done by this summer. John Sherman of the Royals said maybe June or July. We're getting awful close. But do you have any idea? I haven't heard a word, and I think anything's possible.
No idea, Bob.
I think anything's possible.
Yeah.
I think the Royals definitely want a new stadium. I think the Chiefs, though, are willing to settle to upgrade Arrowhead. But anything's on the table. What we do know is that Kansas has, if nothing else, really provoked Missouri into doing something, and yet, ironically, Rob, they still haven't. They haven't yet pulled the trigger on any specific incentives for the Chiefs or the Royals. And I'm talking about Missouri yet, whereas Kansas is still sitting there saying, here it is, $1 billion.
It's going to be fascinating to see what happens at this
We'll be here when it happens, right?
We'll talk all about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, after the break, a warning from health officials. Why Kansas leaders are sounding the alarm as the state's largest measles outbreak in a decade makes an aggressive return. The latest on the highly contagious disease. We'll be right back. You are watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Know a teacher who's going above and beyond? 27 News and Noller Ford want to honor them. Nominate your favorite educator for Teacher of the Month and let us celebrate their dedication. Teacher of the Month, sponsored by 27 News and Noller Ford.
I got hurt by a texting driver, and the insurance company is rushing me to settle.
I've got tons of medical bills, but what the insurance company is offering isn't enough. If you've been in a car wreck, you deserve more. More answers to your questions, more attention to your case, and more money in your pocket.
Mike's team got me over $214,000 for my car wreck. Way more than the insurance company was offering.
Mike's got this.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, call me. I've got this.
Call 785-444-4444.
At Briggs Auto Group, we buy cars hassle-free, fair, and competitive. Whether you're looking to sell or trade in, Briggs Auto Group makes it simple and stress-free. Come see us today at Briggs Auto Group, where trust matters and customers are number one.
Grace Med Health Clinic is your home for complete, compassionate care. From medical visits to vision screenings, dental care, behavioral health support, and a fully equipped pharmacy, we're here to meet all your health needs. Our dedicated team of providers and staff work together to make every visit welcoming and stress-free. Because at Grace Med, you're not just a patient, you're part of our family. Call 785-861-8800 to schedule your appointment. Grace Med Health Clinic, compassionate care for all.
Are you dreaming of a steady income in retirement? My team and I are here to help you plan for a financially secure future. Reach out today and let's build a worry-free retirement together. Because those who plan for the future have one.
Next Live, Broadway's Jonathan Groff.
Jonathan Groff is a national treasure. There, I said it.
Plus 2020's Deborah Roberts.
Monday at 11 on 27 KSNT.
And welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. Thanks so much for sticking around. Well, the latest measles outbreak in Kansas has state health officials and the governor sounding the alarm. Governor Laura Kelly now urging Kansans to get the measles vaccine. This is the state's reporting 37 cases of the disease. State health officials say this is Kansas's largest outbreak in 10 years. Transmission typically happens when people are exposed to measles internationally. This time, they say the virus in southwest Kansas has traits consistent with the genetics of the virus in the outbreak in Texas, and health officials are bracing for additional outbreaks.
It's so easily transmissible. Someone who has measles just has to get near a few people that aren't immune.
Yeah, no parent wants to see their child in the hospital over something we know how to prevent.
The state's chief medical officer also says if someone who has measles gets around 10 people who do not, statistically, 9 of them would be expected to catch the virus. They say measles is highly contagious and does not have a particular season of the year where it dies off, so a timeline would be hard to estimate. Now, Bob, right now this is in the southwest part of the state, but health officials, of course, expecting additional outbreaks. How do you keep something like that contained, and can you just provide maybe some context on the laws as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, what people want, health officials want, is herd immunity, and basically, without getting the specific numbers, over 90% vaccination, sometimes 95%, can provide that herd immunity. And then essentially, Rob, it's eradicated because it's got nowhere to go. And just to give you an example, though, vaccination rates have been going down in the last couple of years. And in Haskell County, Kansas, only 56% last year of children were vaccinated. In Gray County, only 61%. Well, yeah, we're not mathematicians, but you're not getting to 90% with those numbers, and that probably helps explain why this is happening. So what the governor mentioned in her remarks was that one of the problems was misinformation. And what's really interesting is people know Robert F. Kennedy, who's the cabinet member now with the Trump administration. He's actually gone out and said, please get the measles vaccination. And he had earlier, a year or so ago, was saying, oh, leave it up to people's choice in a sense. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Well, he's now saying, hey, this is serious business. Go ahead, take the vaccine now that he's in the cabinet, and probably, had some briefings with some health officials about this particular vaccine. So I'm sure he's probably, got comments on some other vaccine, but on the measles one, he's right there with Governor Kelly, and Republican Bill Clifford also was there from the legislature, an ophthalmologist, encouraging people to get the vaccine as well.
And Bob, we've talked about laws recently passed here in Kansas that limit health officials' power and broadens the exemptions for religious, for theistic, non-theistic beliefs, even philosophical. Tell us about that. Do you think that's going to change the numbers of people getting vaccinated? Yeah,
I mean, that was sort of the governor was alluding to that as well, saying, listen, you have agency, yes, to not get the vaccine, but she was arguing, parents, you have agency to get the vaccine. And the law says that, make sure I say it right, that you have a written statement that taking the vaccine would violate, quote, sincerely held religious beliefs, as you mentioned. And really, it's up to the communities, like right now, Western Kansas, to what's best for the community to get to that 90%. There's going to be a few. Not everybody has to, but it can't be 30, 40%.
Very interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for your insight, Bob. With more to talk about coming up, the state's economic outlook could spiral according to the latest projections. What this means for you. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
For Brittany, it's more than a move. It's a new city. It's a new role. It's a brand new horizon that's hers for the taking. It's more than a move, and we're more than a truck.
Car accident? Devon James wins. Kansas, you know what to do.
Hurt in the state? Call 8.
888-8888.
That's Devon James. As in Devon James wins.
888-8888. Nights, weekends, anytime.
Call or text 888-8888.
We're Devon James. Act after an accident, you need a win.
And we'll fight to help you get it.
Don't wait. Call 8. Call or text 888-8888.
Steak lovers, this one's for you. Perkins 2 River Steak Menu brings bold flavors to your plate. A sizzling steak and cheese skillet loaded with melty goodness and the haystack sirloin topped with crispy onions.
Come try us. Come back to see us. Come home to Perkins. Your table is waiting.
Since 1992, Prairie Stone has been a landscaping staple in the Manhattan area. Professional, unique designs, attention to detail, and quality customer service are the cornerstones of our company. Give Prairie Stone a call today.
Spring is the season for fresh starts, and at Faith Furniture, it's time for a furniture refresh. We're making room for the new, and that means huge savings on top quality name brand furniture. Out with the old and in with the new. Save up to 50% off the latest styles and enjoy up to 36 months of free financing. Hurry into Faith Furniture's spring cleaning sale. Make room for the new with savings and financing that are too good to miss. Visit us today because the best deals won't last long.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. We're back now with the latest consensus revenue estimates in Kansas. The overall estimate for fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2026 was increased by a combined $377.5 million. The estimate for total taxes was increased by $195.1 million, and other revenues were increased by $182.4 million for the 2 years combined. Now, while this could be seen as positive news, the state's also projecting that Kansas could be $730.5 million in debt by 2029. The deficit would slowly eat away at the state's ending balance each year. All right, now, Bob, the Republican leaders, of course, butting heads over the very latest estimates. We know that. Now, the governor says, though, the debt is coming from irresponsible gimmicks from the Republican-led legislature, but Republican leaders, of course, firing back, saying they spent $50 million less than what the governor proposed with the budget plan. So let's talk about that. What does it mean for the economic outlook for the state, Bob?
Well, I mean, there's actually, this is sort of good news, because what it means is that over the last several years, we've been, enjoying the good life. A lot of federal money has been coming in. The governor and the legislature cut the food tax. I've been loving that. Every time I go to Dillon's, that's a lot lower. That was a fantastic one. Mm-hmm. There was a $2 billion over 5 years tax cut last year in 2024. And, it wasn't huge, but still the property taxes were cut this year. So a lot of federal money's been coming in, taxes have been cut, but now the big question, Rob, is it time to pay the piper? And not this year, apparently, but if something doesn't change, it could be by 2029 that some either big budget cuts will have to come, or maybe some of those tax cuts will have to be rolled back.
So what's the proverb, Bob, that we're planting the seeds for somebody else to enjoy the shade from
exactly.
the tree, right?
Yeah.
So what are the next steps for this?
Well, this has happened. I've been around a long time with Kansas politics. It happened to Governor Bill Graves, happened to Governor Kathleen Sebelius, is they had to go back and raise taxes. I'm not running for office, so I can say it. I don't think you are either. You can say it too.
Bob.
But needless to say, nobody wants to say that in the legislature.
Yeah.
So literally what they're saying is, I guess we'll have to figure this out. And what that means is in the next year or two, we have an election in 2026. I think those candidates might have to address what they're going to do about this if this continues.
It's always taxes are always fascinating to me, Bob. I mean, we have to pay them, but we don't want to pay them. We want to cut them, but then what happens if we cut them?
And we have lots of money, we'll cut them, but maybe we shouldn't have cut them so much.
Exactly. Yeah. So we don't have a crystal ball, but fascinating to see how this plays out over the next several years.
Yeah, and it might really play out in the 2026 gubernatorial election for sure, I think.
And then what about balancing the budget next year? Changes that could be made, Bob, looking into the next session.
Well, again, the Republican majority has taken over the budgeting process. So what we may see is some maybe dramatic spending cuts coming out of the Republicans in that session. It was a little bit odd this year because the governor actually line item vetoed a bunch of stuff, which would have cut the budget. And the Republican majority on half of them said, oh, no, we want to keep those in. So maybe next year there'll be the year more they really want to go after the budget.
Very interesting. Any key takeaways, final takeaways from you, Bob, on this?
Yeah, well, they got out of town pretty quickly, so maybe, yeah, as I said, next year may be the big budget cutting year.
Bob, thanks so much as always for joining us and your insight. Appreciate it. And that was your look at Inside Kansas Politics. We'll see you next Sunday, same time, same place. Have a wonderful day.